You ever get that feeling where something feels wrong before you even know why? Like your gut is 5 steps ahead of your brain, quietly screaming while you're still trying to play it cool? That was me on a Thursday afternoon in Portland. The kind of day that should have been nothing special. Just another notch in the belt of a predictable life. And yet, that's when it all started to unravel. The meeting had run long, client dragging out every minor detail as if the world depended on their presentation. By the time I hit the road, all I could think about was getting home, kicking off my shoes, maybe cracking open a cold one. Olivia had texted me earlier, said she'd be out for a late lunch with coworkers. Some project milestone or whatever. I didn't think twice about it. Why would I? That was our rhythm. She had her work life, I had mine. We trusted each other. At least, I thought we did. I was about 3 blocks from home, coasting through familiar streets when I spotted it. A black sports car, low-slung and polished to an obnoxious shine, parked just off the curb near one of those newer apartment complexes. Not exactly rare in Portland, but something about it nagged at me. The windows were tinted dark, illegal dark. Normally, I'd barely notice. But this time I slowed down. And that's when I saw her. Olivia. At first, I wasn't even sure it was her. She was angled slightly away, talking animatedly to the driver. But the way she tucked her hair behind her ear, the soft laugh that crinkled her eyes, it was unmistakable. My wife. Only she wasn't laughing like she did with me. The man beside her, some stranger in a crisp white dress shirt, had his hand resting on the center console, fingers drumming an idle rhythm dangerously close to hers. They weren't touching. Not quite. But the space between them was charged, almost magnetic. I recognized that body language. The lean-in, the subtle mirroring. 2 people cocooned in their own little world. I didn't slam the brakes. Didn't swerve dramatically. No, I kept driving like a coward, heart pounding in my throat, pretending to be casual while every instinct screamed otherwise. She's probably hitching a ride, I told myself. Maybe her coworker was heading the same way. But the lie sounded thin, even to me. Olivia had said lunch with colleagues. Plural. Not one-on-one with some guy I'd never seen before in a car that screamed midlife crisis. My mind started connecting dots that I hadn't even known existed. The way she'd been, different lately. Not distant exactly, but harder to reach. Longer hours, more late meetings. New perfume she just felt like trying. Her phone face down at dinner, notifications silenced with a sheepish grin. Little things. Things I had filed away as quirks, as stress, as life. But seeing her there, so comfortable, so easy with someone else, it was like flipping on a light in a dark room. Suddenly, all those little quirks looked a lot like warning signs. I watched as the man said something that made her laugh, a laugh I hadn't heard in weeks. That familiar, open, belly-deep kind of laugh. The kind that used to be reserved for us. And that's when it hit me. That laugh used to belong to me. I didn't follow them when the car pulled away. I don't know why. Maybe I was afraid of what I'd find. Maybe I wasn't ready to know. Instead, I sat there in my car, gripping the wheel until my knuckles whitened as the black car disappeared around the corner, leaving me behind. When I finally made it home, the house looked the same. Perfectly ordinary. The lawn freshly mowed, the porch light off, the faint smell of lavender from the diffuser she always kept by the window. You'd never know anything was wrong. Olivia was already there, moving around the kitchen like nothing had happened. She greeted me with her usual smile, one that would have seemed warm and familiar any other day. Hey, babe. Long meeting? She asked, casual, like we were still us. I watched her for a beat too long, wondering if I should say something. My throat felt tight. I imagined blurting it out. Who was that man? Whose car was that? Why did you lie to me? But the words stuck. Instead, I nodded. Yeah. Same old. She launched into a rundown of her day, how her meeting had ended early, how she'd had trouble getting an Uber, and how, thankfully, a colleague had offered her a ride back to the neighborhood. Her tone was light, conversational. She even laughed at the part about ride shares being impossible during lunch hours. It all sounded so rehearsed. And maybe that was the most damning part. I didn't press. Not then. Some pathetic part of me wanted to believe her, to write off what I'd seen as a misunderstanding. Maybe I was tired. Maybe I was being paranoid. Marriage isn't about interrogations, right? It's about trust. But as I watched her move around the kitchen, so at ease, I realized something unsettling. Trust is easier to give than it is to reclaim. Over dinner, I found myself studying her more closely. The way she smiled, the way she fidgeted with her necklace when she thought I wasn't looking. Was it guilt? Or was it me projecting? Every time her phone buzzed, my stomach twisted. She didn't check it until she thought I was busy with my plate. For the first time in years, I felt like a stranger in my own home. Later that night, as Olivia scrolled through her phone on the couch, I sat in the armchair, pretending to watch TV. My mind replayed the scene in that car on an endless loop. Her laugh. His hand. The easy and asterisk Macy that felt like a punch to the gut. She noticed me watching and smiled, patting the cushion beside her. Come sit with me. You're so far away. I moved to the couch, settling beside her, but something had shifted. There was an invisible wall now, thin but impenetrable. I think she felt it too. Her fingers brushed mine, and for a second it was almost normal. Almost, but I couldn't unsee what I'd seen. That night, lying in bed beside her, staring at the ceiling while she drifted to sleep, I realized that this suspicion, this gnawing doubt, wasn't going to go away. I wanted to believe in coincidences. But deep down I knew. Something was wrong. And for the first time, I wasn't sure if I was ready to find out what. You'd be surprised how loud silence can be. The days after seeing Olivia in that car felt like living underwater. On the surface, nothing seemed out of place. We still had dinner together. Still exchanged morning routines. Still shared a bed. But beneath it all, something vital had shifted. Or maybe it had been shifting for a while, and I was only now catching up. I started noticing things I used to ignore. Like how her phone was never far from her hand now. Before, it would sit abandoned on the kitchen counter or buried in her purse for hours. Now it was always face down, screen dark, but close. Too close. If it buzzed, she'd casually mute it with a flick of her finger, as if it were nothing, as if she wasn't hyper-aware of my gaze. And the late nights? They were multiplying. Every other evening, it seemed, she had some meeting that ran long. She'd come home with tired eyes and half-hearted apologies, but the way she talked about work was different. Vague. Uncharacteristically careful with her words. I'm sorry, Chris. We had this surprise deadline. Total mess. She said it once, breezing past me on her way to the shower, her blazer still on, shoes clicking against the hardwood. But deadlines don't explain why she came home with a whiff of cologne I didn't recognize. One evening, while she was in the bathroom, I picked up her jacket to hang it. That's when a hotel key card slipped out of the pocket. Plain white, no logo. Generic. Disposable. My hands froze midair. Probably from a client event, I told myself. But the pit in my stomach said otherwise. I didn't confront her. Not yet. Maybe I was still clinging to the hope that there was an innocent explanation. Or maybe I was afraid of the answer. Either way, I slid the key card back into her pocket and kept my mouth shut. But the cracks were showing. One night, I asked her casually, how's your friend Megan doing? Haven't heard you mention her in a while. Megan was her go-to alibi for girls' nights, coffee dates, spa days. But that night, Olivia blinked a moment too long before replying. Oh, you know Megan. Busy as ever. We actually met for lunch last week. Funny. She hadn't mentioned that at the time. I smiled and let it slide, but inside, something hardened. This was becoming a pattern. The little lies. The inconsistencies. The forgotten details. I started keeping track, not obsessively, but methodically. Dates, times, her explanations. I wasn't proud of it, but it felt like self-preservation. If the truth was slipping through the cracks, I needed to catch it. One afternoon, she called to say she'd be working late again. A client dinner, she said, with the same breezy tone as always. Where are you going? I asked, trying to sound casual. She paused. Oh, just that Italian place downtown. The one we went to last year. Except we'd never been to any Italian place downtown. She was gambling on me not remembering. That's when I realized she wasn't just lying. She was getting sloppy. A few days later, I found her perfume, one I didn't recognize, tucked into her purse. Olivia had always been loyal to the same brand, a soft, floral scent. This new one was sharper, muskier. Different. A man's influence? Maybe. Mike had said yes. Still, I said nothing. It's funny how you can live with someone, share a space, a bed, a life, and yet feel like you're on opposite sides of a glass wall. Everything looked the same, but the air was thicker. Conversations felt rehearsed. She was performing the role of Olivia, but something behind her eyes had changed. And yet, part of me still wanted to believe I was wrong. One night, out of sheer desperation, I checked our shared bank account. Not because I wanted to be that guy, the suspicious, prying husband, but because the doubt was eating me alive. And there it was. A string of charges at places I didn't recognize. Upscale restaurants, boutique hotels, odd little cafes nowhere near her office. Places we'd never been together. Places she couldn't explain away as work. I stared at the screen, my stomach twisting, feeling like a fool. It was all right there. The pattern, the timeline, the betrayal. I just hadn't wanted to see it. Later that night, when she came home, I watched her move through the house like a ghost. She was polite, even affectionate, but her smile didn't reach her eyes. It hadn't in a while. And then, a moment of clarity hit me. She wasn't hiding an affair from me. She was hiding the fact that she no longer saw me. It wasn't about secrecy. It was about distance. Emotional, physical, all of it. She was living a life parallel to mine, close enough to mimic int asterisk Macy, but far enough that I couldn't reach her. That night, lying in bed, I stared at the ceiling, sleep elusive. Olivia's breathing was slow, even, peaceful. I wondered if she felt guilt, or was she already so far removed from us that it didn't even register? Was I the villain in her narrative now? The inattentive husband? The guy she outgrew? The questions gnawed at me, each one heavier than the last. I realized then that suspicion doesn't shout. It whispers, a constant, quiet erosion of trust, wearing you down until you don't recognize yourself. I was tired of whispers. The next morning, I decided to test the waters. Hey, Liv, how about we do something this weekend? Just us. Maybe a drive up to the coast. She smiled, but it was tight, controlled. Oh, I'd love to, but I might have to catch up on some work. Things are crazy right now. Of course they were. I nodded, acting like I believed her. But deep down, I knew the truth. The woman I loved was slipping away, and I wasn't sure if I was supposed to chase after her or let her go. The only thing I knew for certain, this wasn't the end of it. Not yet. Some truths arrive like a punch to the gut. Others creep in slowly, seeping through the cracks until they're impossible to ignore. For me, it was both. The morning it all came crashing down started like any other. The sky was its usual Portland gray, the kind of overcast that makes you feel like time stands still. Olivia had already left for work by the time I shuffled into the kitchen. Her side of the bed was cold. The faint trace of her perfume lingered in the air, sharp and unfamiliar. I was halfway through my second cup of coffee when my phone buzzed. An unknown number. Normally, I'd let it go to voicemail, but something in me, call it instinct, call it dread, made me pick up. There was no voice, just a message, a single text. You deserve to know. Attached were 5 photos. The first one hit like a sledgehammer. Olivia, my Olivia, walking into a hotel lobby with a man. Same guy from the black sports car. His hand resting casually on her lower back, guiding her through the revolving door. It was int asterisk mate. Familiar. Not the kind of touch you share with a colleague. My stomach churned. The next few photos were worse. One showed them sitting in the hotel lounge, drinks in hand, leaning in close. She was laughing, her head tilted in that way she used to when we first met. I knew that laugh, knew what it meant. Another photo captured them in the parking lot, oblivious to the world. The last one sealed it. Outside the hotel, near a side entrance, their lips locked in a kiss. Not rushed, not stolen. A kiss that spoke of comfort, of routine. This wasn't a mistake. This was a pattern. The message was unsigned. But a few minutes later, another one followed. My name's Laura. I'm his wife. You don't know me, but I thought you should know what's been going on. I'm not trying to cause drama. You deserved the truth. I figured it was time someone gave it to you. Laura, the wife of Olivia's lover. In some twisted way, her message was kind. No insults, no bitterness, just the cold, hard facts. I sat there, staring at the screen, the weight of it pressing down on me. My heart wasn't pounding like I expected. It wasn't some movie scene with glass shattering or plates being thrown. It was quieter than that. Numb. Like my mind was buffering, unable to keep up. You think you know how you'll react to betrayal. Anger, fury, maybe even denial. But in that moment, I felt none of it. Just exhaustion. I don't know how long I sat at that kitchen table. Phone in hand, coffee gone cold. The house felt foreign, like I was trespassing in my own life. For months, the signs had been there. The late nights, the lies, the rehearsed smiles. I had seen them, cataloged them even, but still I had clung to hope. Some foolish part of me had believed this was salvageable. that maybe it was just a rough patch. But hope, I realized, was a dangerous thing, because hope keeps you blind. The sound of keys jingling at the front door snapped me back to reality. Olivia was home early. Unusual. She stepped inside, dropping her bag by the door, shaking off the drizzle from outside. Her smile appeared the moment she saw me. "Hey babe, you're home. Everything okay?" Funny question coming from her. I said nothing, just held up my phone, screen still lit with the photos. Her smile faltered. In that instant, the mask slipped. Her face drained of color, lips parting slightly as if the air had been S**ked out of her lungs. She knew. She knew there was no spinning this. No lie big enough to cover it. She opened her mouth, closed it, tried again. "Chris, don't," I said. Calm. Too calm. "Don't insult both of us with lies right now." For a moment there was silence. Just the soft hum of the fridge. The distant patter of rain against the window. "I never wanted you to find out like this," she said, her voice trembling. "That's comforting," I replied bitterly. "Really?" She sank into the chair across from me, burying her face in her hands. "It wasn't supposed to happen," she whispered. "It started as, God, I don't even know how to explain it. We were just talking, venting. You've been so distant lately. I felt invisible." Invisible. That word stung more than I expected. I wanted to argue, to list every sacrifice, every late night at work, every little thing I'd done to keep us afloat. But what would it change? Justifications feel hollow when trust is already dead. "I'm not going to ask how long," I said. "I think I already know." She looked up, eyes rimmed red, tears spilling freely now. "I never stopped loving you, Chris. I swear. It wasn't about him. It was about me. About feeling wanted. Seen. I didn't flinch. Didn't soften. I would have seen you, Olivia, if you'd let me." Her sobs broke through then, raw and ugly. But I felt disconnected, like I was watching a stranger fall apart. "This wasn't a mistake," I said quietly. "A mistake is a slip-up. This was a choice. Over and over again. You chose him." "I know," she sobbed. "I know I did. And I hate myself for it." Funny. I couldn't even muster the energy to hate her. Maybe that was the saddest part. I stood up, phone still in hand, and looked down at the woman I thought I'd grow old with. "I just want you to know," I said, my voice low, "that today was the first day I didn't believe a word you said, and I don't think that'll ever change." With that, I left the kitchen, retreating to the bedroom. She didn't follow. Maybe she knew there was nothing left to say. That night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, feeling the weight of reality settle over me. There was no going back. No fixing this. Trust, once shattered, doesn't come with a manual for repair. By morning, the numbness had faded, replaced by a cold clarity. I was done being lied to. It was time to take back control. And Olivia, she was about to learn what consequences felt like. That morning, the house was quieter than usual. Not the comfortable kind of quiet. The air felt wrong, like the calm before a storm, but somehow worse because this wasn't a storm we could weather. This was the aftermath. Rubble settling after the blast. I woke up alone. No trace of Olivia beside me. Her side of the bed untouched. The sheets still smooth. I wasn't surprised. Last night had said it all. Still, a part of me wondered if she'd even stayed the night. Part of me didn't care. I got up, went through the motions: shower, coffee, checking my phone, as if it wasn't the most surreal morning of my life. There was a message from Laura. Just one line. "If you need anything, I'm here. We deserve better." I didn't reply, not because I didn't appreciate it, but because I didn't know what to say. Solidarity with a stranger. A sad little club neither of us wanted to join. When Olivia finally appeared, it was like a scene out of a play where the actors know their lines, but have no idea how to deliver them anymore. She stood in the kitchen doorway, dressed for work, but I could tell she wasn't going anywhere. The red in her eyes betrayed her, the quiver in her hands. She was holding it together by a thread. "Chris," she said softly, almost testing my reaction. Can we talk? I set my coffee down, the clink of ceramic louder than it should have been. I think we're past talking, Olivia, but go ahead. Say what you need to say. She swallowed hard, stepped into the room like it was foreign territory. I messed up. I know that. I don't expect you to forgive me, not today, maybe not ever. But I need you to know it wasn't about you. That was Rich. Of course it was about me, I said, keeping my voice level. You felt neglected, invisible, lonely, all things you could have said. But you didn't. You found someone else to fill that gap. Tears welled up again. I almost pitied her. Almost. I didn't want to hurt you, Chris. You have to believe that. I laughed not because it was funny, but because it was absurd. You didn't want to hurt me, but here we are. You made a series of choices. Repeatedly. At some point, didn't mean to loses its meaning. She took a shaky breath, stepping closer. I didn't know how to stop. It started small, stupid even. Texts, coffee runs, venting about work. Then it became a habit. A distraction. And before I knew it, I was in over my head. I watched her carefully. The way her hands twisted in front of her, her eyes flicking anywhere but at me. She wasn't trying to manipulate me now. This was real. But real doesn't undo betrayal. You're not a victim here, Olivia, I said quietly. Don't frame it like you tripped and fell into someone else's arms. You walked there. Willingly. The words hung in the air, sharp and undeniable. She sat down, defeated. I deserve that, she said, barely audible. Every bit of it. I was selfish. Weak. And I've destroyed the one thing that mattered most. The thing is, hearing her say it out loud didn't bring the satisfaction I thought it would. It didn't fix anything. If anything, it just made the hole feel deeper. I want to fix this, Chris. I'll do anything. Therapy. Counseling. I'll cut him out completely. Just don't give up on us. That's when I felt it. That sense of inevitability. It was never about hating her. It was about accepting that what we had was already gone. The version of Olivia I married wouldn't have needed to be caught to confess. The version of us that worked wouldn't have needed this conversation. I'm not angry anymore, I said honestly. I'm tired. Tired of trying to convince myself this was just a bump in the road. Tired of ignoring the signs. And tired of pretending I don't already know how this ends. Her lips quivered. Please, Chris? Don't do this. We can come back from this. I know we can. I shook my head slowly. The thing about trust, Liv, once it's broken, it's not about patching it up. It's about realizing you're trying to glue together something that already shattered. And even if it looks okay from a distance, the cracks are still there. Always. She was crying in earnest now. Silent, heavy sobs that shook her shoulders. But I didn't reach out. I couldn't. Because the man who would have reached out was gone. He was standing outside that hotel watching his wife with another man. And he wasn't coming back. I think you should stay somewhere else for a while, I said finally. Calm. Decisive. Her head snapped up. Chris, no. Please. Don't shut me out. Don't throw this away. I'm not throwing anything away, I replied. You already did. The words cut and she flinched. But it was the truth. I don't hate you, I said, softer now. But I don't trust you. And right now, I need space to figure out what's left of me after all this. For a long moment, she didn't move. Just sat there, breathing ragged, hands limp in her lap. Then, with a hollow nod, she stood. I'll pack a bag, she whispered. She left the room, and with her, the last threads of denial unraveled. I sat there alone, listening to the faint sounds of her moving through the house. The same house we picked out together. The same house where we dreamed of building a life. It all felt like a cruel joke now. When she returned, suitcase in hand, she paused in the doorway. I'm sorry, Chris. For everything. I never stopped loving you. I believed she meant it. But love wasn't enough anymore. I know, I said. But it's not about love now. It's about respect. And that's gone. She didn't argue. Just nodded once, biting her lip to keep from breaking down again, and walked out the door. The moment it clicked shut, the house was silent. For the first time in weeks, the suffocating tension was gone, replaced by an emptiness that was somehow easier to bear. I didn't feel victorious. There was no satisfaction. Just relief. Like pulling out a splinter that's been festering for far too long. I sat there for a while, staring at nothing, the quiet wrapping around me like a heavy blanket. And for the first time, I allowed myself to feel the weight of it. The collapse wasn't sudden. It had been happening in slow motion for months. Today just made it official. The first thing I noticed after Olivia left was how loud the quiet was. I'd always thought of silence as peaceful, something to look forward to after a long day. But this wasn't that. This was the heavy, suffocating kind of quiet. The kind that settles into the bones of a house when something permanent has changed. I sat there for a while, staring at the door she'd just walked through. Part of me expected her to come back, to knock, to say she forgot something. But she didn't. The silence held. When I finally stood up, it wasn't dramatic. There was no moment of clarity. No anger. Just a simple, exhausted acceptance. Something fundamental had broken, and no amount of promises or therapy or desperate apologies could fix it. I made my way upstairs, pausing at the bedroom door. Our bedroom. It looked the same, but now it felt like a stage set. A carefully arranged lie. The neatly made bed. The framed photos on the nightstand. The perfume bottle by the mirror. All of it felt foreign. Like I was trespassing in a version of my life that no longer existed. That's when I knew. This wasn't just a fight. This was the end. The decision wasn't loud. It wasn't even emotional. It was quiet, methodical, like flipping a switch after years of dimming the lights one notch at a time. I grabbed a couple of boxes from the closet. Not in a fit of rage, not with any dramatic flair. Just practical, focused. Her things needed to go. I started small, her drawers, her side of the closet. I didn't rifle through them. No need. The int asterisk Macy of knowing where everything was made the process almost surgical. Dresses she'd worn to weddings, sweaters I'd bought her for Christmas, little trinkets from vacations long past. Each item slid into the box without ceremony. Should have hurt more. But the truth is, I'd been grieving this relationship long before Laura's message. The betrayal was just the final confirmation of a truth I'd been avoiding. When I got to her jewelry box, I paused. There, tucked in the corner, was the bracelet I'd given her on our 5th anniversary. Sterling silver. Simple. Elegant. She'd cried when I gave it to her. Told me it was the most thoughtful gift anyone had ever given her. I stared at it for a long moment, then gently placed it in the box. This wasn't about revenge. This was about reclaiming my space. My life. By the time I carried the boxes downstairs, it was late afternoon. The sky outside had shifted from gray to that deep, muted blue that comes before dusk. I lined the boxes by the front door. It wasn't symbolic. It was practical. When Olivia came to collect her things, they'd be ready. I texted her. "Your things are packed. Let me know when you're coming to get them." She didn't reply right away. Not that I expected her to. A few hours later, as I was scrolling mindlessly through emails, her response came. "I'm so sorry, Chris. I'll come by this weekend. Thank you for packing my stuff. I'm sorry it's come to this." Funny how apologies get heavier when they come too late. I didn't respond, because there was nothing left to say. The next morning, I did what I hadn't done in weeks. I took back my morning routine. Made real coffee, not the quick pods Olivia liked. Opened the windows. Put on the playlist I used to listen to before the tension filled every corner of this house. Felt strange. Familiar but foreign. Like trying on old clothes that don't quite fit anymore. By noon, I was at my lawyer's office. I'd already done the research. Already read the articles, scoured the forums, listened to the podcasts about divorce processes. But now it was real. He was a no-nonsense type. Gray suit, sharp eyes, firm handshake. I liked him immediately. He listened without interrupting as I laid it all out. The affair, the photos, the lies. When I finished, he gave a small nod. "I'm going to be straight with you, Chris. You have everything you need for an uncontested divorce. Evidence. Timeline. The emotional betrayal is clear, but from a legal standpoint, we'll keep this clean. You want to minimize the mess." I nodded. "Good," he said. "Then here's what we do." For the next hour, we went through the motions. Paperwork, assets, logistics, things that should have felt clinical but somehow brought me a strange sense of control. I wasn't being blindsided anymore. I was driving this now. As I left his office, a strange calm settled over me. This was happening. The marriage was ending. But oddly, I didn't feel broken. I felt resolute. That evening, Olivia called. I didn't pick up. She texted instead. "Can we please talk? I know it's over. I need to hear it from you." That's when I realized. She wanted closure. But closure isn't given. It's taken. Still, a part of me owed it to the history we shared to give her that moment. Not for her sake. For mine. We agreed to meet the next day. Neutral ground. A quiet park we used to walk through when we first moved here. Back when everything still felt possible. When I arrived, she was already sitting on a bench beneath an old oak tree. She looked tired. Smaller somehow. "Hey," she said softly as I approached. I sat beside her. The distance between us felt more like a canyon. "I guess this is it," she said, forcing a smile. I didn't return it. "Yeah, this is it." For a while we just sat there. No accusations. No rehashing. Just two people acknowledging the slow, painful death of something that used to be beautiful. "I don't know who I became," she said eventually. "Somewhere along the way, I stopped recognizing myself. I blamed you. I blamed work. But the truth is, it was me. I chose this." "I know," I said quietly. "And I think part of me knew it was coming. I just didn't want to see it." She turned to me, eyes glistening. "I'm sorry, Chris. For all of it. You didn't deserve this. Apologies don't fix broken glass. But they can give you a reason to sweep up the pieces. I hope you figure out why you did it," I said. "Not for me. For you." She nodded. Silent tears falling. When we stood to leave, there was no hug. No lingering glance. Just a quiet understanding. We had reached the end. That night, back in the house, I stood by the window, staring out into the dark. And for the first time since Laura's message, I felt something close to peace. Not happiness. Not yet. But peace. I had made my decision. There was nothing left to save. And now it was time to start over. On my terms.